ideally would sound like if I had 8 timpani drums. I was going bum, 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 bum. Yes.
Yeah, that was cool.
I had a blast checking out this year's Pittsburgh Double Bass Symposium. It's always such a treat to see these wonderful artists come together at Carnegie Mellon University, organized by Micah Howard of the Pittsburgh Symphony. And Joe McFadden, principal bassist of the Atlanta Symphony, dug into some articulation concepts that I felt were really helpful. So we're gonna pull some highlights from this masterclass. I'll add my thoughts and I hope you enjoy it. We dig into topics like this and much more each week in our weekly newsletter. We've got monthly sheet music giveaways, all sorts of bass events that are happening near you, and much more. If you're not on the list, consider subscribing.
You shouldn't ease into it. It should have like a strong front to it. Like trombone players always say, they call it like a front to the note. It has like a definitive pop. I don't want you to like accent it or anything like that. It just has a nice pop and release. Good.
You can, of course, watch the entire Joe McFadden masterclass. That's up on the Carnegie Mellon University YouTube page. Watch the whole live stream. That's all linked up in the description below.
To eliminate the k to it, can you just get palm? Like a B or a P sound. Blah. String, you have a grip on it so that you can wiggle it around, and you're just going to pop and release. That's it, yes. It's pop and release, pop and release. Almost everything you're doing with the bass ever for your entire career is going to be a lot of pop and release.
Gotcha.
So that's, while eliminating the dirt in the sound if possible. So that's what we're trying to experiment, finding like where's the threshold of just like where you can get rid of the sound or like the scratch or the squeak. I love the fact that you're getting, again, a really good pop and release on each note. That your low E it's short, but it's fat. You're not trying to drag it out. You're getting good contact with it so that it still has a good, kind of beefy low end to it. Just play the very first note and maybe play a ½ inch closer to the fingerboard. If I had to guess just by looking, I would say right around here is probably the sweet spot. Okay, now there, further away from the front.
If you want to get good pop and release, you're going to need quality rosin. That's where today's sponsor, Upton Bass, comes in. They have such a cool lineup of rosins. They have their maple, which they first came out with, and which I have on my German bow right here. It has a really nice, kind of pops-like quality, but also a little bit of Carlson or Nyman, some Swedish rosin mixed in. Their Maple Plus, they came out with a little bit later, and I've got that on my main bow, my French bow. This is a little lighter in color, and this is even slightly closer to Pops. I'd say mostly like Pops, but with a little bit of that Swedish hint to it, and really nice. And they've also got this honey rosin, which is like a finishing rosin. It's a harder rosin, so I just put on, from time to time, just a little bit of honey. And I find it gives just this little bit of sheen and brilliance to the sound. I love all three of these rosins, and thank you for sponsoring the video, Upton. One very cool thing that Joe dug into during some of these moments in the masterclass is that you pop, but you've got to make sure that you release as well. You don't just grab the string and then keep that weight in. Otherwise, you're crushing the sound. You're actually getting less sound, which may seem counterintuitive, but it is a very real thing.
When I use the word pop and release, or the term pop and release, you're kind of like you're into the string, and then you're gonna pull to the side a little bit, but there is kind of an upward motion. Just a very, very slight release of the downward pressure. Yes.
Yeah, that was cool.
A very, very, very famous bass teacher. I'm gonna leave their name out of this just in case I'm getting it wrong. I believe said that if you're not playing on more than one string, you're not playing hard enough. Stand like right behind me so you can see what my bow arm looks like, as if it was going to be yours. See how my bow is like kind of doing this almost, in a very miniature fashion.
Yeah.
You can hear my articulation. Like I'm getting a nice pop to
Yeah.
it, but I'm not. If I was applying the same pressure at the beginning of to the rest of the bow, you do that, right? And then you're squashing the pitch. If you're playing in a bass section and it's like a triple forte passage, and it could be something in first position, and it sounds like absolute garbage because everybody's playing as hard as they possibly can, you know. And as soon as everybody kind of opens up a little bit more bow speed, the intonation creating resonance, and the intonation stands a chance of like blooming together. You know, it can actually bloom, and that is created by that release. You know, you pop for the articulation, you release for the sound. Just get like half an inch closer to the bridge, so that you can use bridge tension instead of downward pressure to create sound. That's it.
Do you have any advice for? I get a lot of cracks and like squeaks. Was that pretty obvious?
No, I don't think so. This is a good conversation to have too, because like what sounds, you know, you'll drive yourself crazy trying to, you know, obviously we all want to play as cleanly as possible, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much stuff doesn't make it out there. You probably record yourself a lot, right? You probably put the mic, you know, your phone or whatever it is on your user stand right here, right? But it's not the same, like, you know, when I do that, you know, I can hear everything that I can hear right under my ear, and I'm just like, oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as you put it out in the hall, it's like some of that stuff's just, it's not, you know, a string doesn't catch the way you wanted it to or something like that. Sometimes it doesn't, most of the time it doesn't translate out there. Play the forte of the scherzo for me. Okay, that went really well. How did it feel the first time you did it?
Not good.
Not good. And it's like, again, this goes back to what I was just talking about. The first note is just C natural,
Yeah.
right? And yet we all screw it up somehow. You know, it's like I think that there's a tendency with Beethoven 5 is that, you know, and we put it on this pedestal that's like, oh, it's Beethoven 5, you know, and it's got to be like this big monstrous thing, but it's not. It's your classical symphony single forte. It doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be overplayed, and this ties into the trio too. So just pretend it was Mozart Symphony No. 5 and none of the notes changed. Pretend. How did that feel in comparison?
Felt more comfortable.
Right. It doesn't have to be much different than that. Like that, and that's there's plenty of sound coming out of the bass. They will hear you, especially like in an audition setting. You don't have to feel like you have to overplay or crush the instrument. Because I like to play this as short as possible, and I think it ideally would sound like if I had 8 timpani drums. I was going bum 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 bum. You know, like that's how that should sound. So just play C natural on a loop and just play a whole measure of 8 notes. Yum bucket 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 yum bucket 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 yum bucket bucket yum bucket keep going. Now at some point just throw the left hip in there. Yes. Right, so now when you've done that enough times, like I'll sit there and practice that for days, you know, and just do that. And then even if I have to do it for an audition, I've done that warm-up so many times that I'm already doing it in my head before I have to play it. I just step on the train and go. But it usually takes care of itself.
It's been great getting to know Joe over the years. I had him on my podcast. I will link up to that so you can check that out and learn about his backstory. But it's just really cool to sit in on master classes. I learn so much, and if you haven't done that, I highly recommend it. And you can do that virtually by just digging into that live stream that the Pittsburgh Double Bass Symposium has. And there's much more besides just these lessons. These are just a few things that lingered from this master class that I wanted to expand upon. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you in the next one.